All right, Chapter 4, page 80, The Green Christmas. Henry was glad he sat in the row by the windows in his classroom, because he could watch for snowflakes. Even though his dad said they'd probably have a green Christmas this year with no snow, Henry still hoped for snow and a white Christmas. He was pretty sure the package, hidden behind some boxes in the garage, was the sled that he wanted, a real flexible flyer. While he sat at his desk looking out at the clouds for signs of snow, he was listening to his teacher, Miss Roop, talk about the Christmas play and thinking he had taken part in enough school plays for one semester. In September, he played the second Native American in a play about westward expansion. That hadn't been too bad. He had stuck an old feather from a duster in his hair and wore a car robe, a car blanket his mom had let him take to school. It was easy, because all he had to say was, ugh. Then in November, Rupert came down with the mumps, just before book week. At the last minute, Henry had to wear a long cotton beard and read, Robert, and had to read Robert's part, one of the 7 dwarves in a play called Storyland Favorites Come to Life. It wasn't a play that appealed to Henry, but at least he didn't have to memorize any lines or do much practicing, because there wasn't time. During the performance, he had to stop reading several times in order to take pieces of his cotton beard out of his mouth. His worst part had been in a parent-teacher program for the National Brush Your Teeth Week. Henry had been really disgusted that day. He had to wear his best pants and a white shirt to school, and he had to stay clean all day. Then he missed practicing with his football because the meeting was right after school. Worst of all, he had to stand up in front of all the moms and teachers, bow, and say, "I am Sir Cuspit. My job is to bite. Brush me twice daily to keep me so white." The kids called him Sir Cuspidor for a long time after that. Now Miss Roop was telling the class the Christmas play was called A Visit to Santa Claus. It was about a mom and dad and their 2 kids who visited Santa Claus at the North Pole on Christmas Eve. Henry thought it was a silly play. In the end, it turned out the little boy had dreamed the whole thing. Henry really disliked stories that ended by being someone's dream. Miss Roop said, "Since the whole school is putting on the play, there will not be enough parts for everybody in our room." Yes, that's good, thought Henry. He slid way down in his seat so Miss Roop wouldn't notice him when she was handing out the parts. Miss Roop continued, "Richard, Arthur, Ralph, and David will be 4 of Santa's reindeer. The other 4 will be chosen from the other 3rd grade class." So far, Henry was safe. He stayed down in his seat just to be sure. "Mary Jane, you are to have the part of the dancing doll. Beatrice, you will be the rag doll." Girls' parts. Henry felt a little safer. "Robert, you will be the big brown dog," Miss Roop went on. All the kids laughed. "Arf, arf, arf," said Robert, and the kids all laughed again. When Miss Roop started to hand out the parts, Henry decided she had come to the end of the list, so he sat up straight in his seat and looked out the window again, checking the sky for rain clouds. It looked darker. There might be snow before Christmas after all. He was glad he wouldn't have to stay in school. He was glad he wouldn't have to stay in after school to rehearse A Visit to Santa Claus. He wanted to make snowmen and throw snowballs, since of course his mom and dad wouldn't give him the sled until Christmas. When he had his sled, he wanted to go sliding down the 33rd Street Hill, which was the best sledding hill in Portland, Oregon. Miss Root, holding one part in her hand, stood in front of the class again and smiled in Henry's direction. Just in case she was smiling at him, Henry quickly slid down in his seat again. Uh-oh. She was smiling at him. She said, "And the best part of all goes to Henry Huggins. Henry, you're the shortest boy in our classroom, so you are going to play the part of Timmy, the little boy who dreams the whole story." The whole class shouted with laughter. A little boy? That was worse than anything Henry could imagine. He could never live down the part of a little boy. Sir Cuspid, the tooth, had been bad enough, but a little boy. Oh, the kids are never going to stop teasing him. "Miss Roop, there are lots of littler kids in the lower grades. Couldn't you have like a first grader or a kindergartner play the part?" "No, Henry. All the second and third grade boys are needed for the chorus of polar bears. And the first grade boys and kindergartners are too little to learn so many lines." She handed Henry a paper with the lines for his part. Henry could read Act 1. The scene is Timmy's bedroom. And remember, Henry is going to be Timmy. Timmy is wearing pajamas. Enter Timmy's mother. Timmy's mother says, "Hurry up and get into bed, Timmy. It's Christmas Eve, and good little boys should be asleep when Santa comes." Timmy says, "Yes, mother," and gets into bed. His mother tucks him in and kisses him good night and says, "Good night, Timmy, pleasant dreams." She goes out and shuts the door. Timmy says, "Ho hum, my am I sleepy. I wonder what Santa Claus will have for me in his pack. I think I will try to stay awake." And then he falls asleep. "Oh," Henry groaned. It was worse than he expected. Pajamas! A goodnight kiss! Did they think he was going to stand up on the stage in front of all the girls in the whole school wearing his pajamas? And to get kissed by some silly old 8th grade girl who was supposed to be his mom? Oh my gosh, it was too horrible to think about. He had to get out of this. Already, Robert was whispering across the aisle, "Hey, little boy, little boy." Henry ignored him. Maybe if he did stretching exercises for an hour every morning, he'd grow fast enough to outgrow the part. No, that's not going to work. There wasn't time. He'd have to think of something else. During the rest of the afternoon, Henry had trouble keeping his mind on social studies. He was too busy trying to find a way out of playing Timmy, the little boy. When the end of day bell rang, he grabbed his hat and raincoat from the cloakroom. He was the first one out of this classroom and first one out of the whole school building. Ribsy, just like he always was waiting under the pine tree to keep out of the rain. "Come on, Ribsy," Henry yelled. "Let's keep ahead of the rest of the kids." But he wasn't quite fast enough. Beezus and Robert and Scooter were right behind him. "Hi there, Timmy," they yelled. "How's the little boy?" And then they began to chant, "Henry is a little boy. Henry is a little boy." Ooh, teasing. Henry slowed down. "Ah, be quiet," he yelled at them. "You think you're smart, but you're not. You're just an old rag doll and a brown dog. I'll bet Scooter's something silly, too." "Ha! Wouldn't catch me being in any old play," said Scooter. "I'm on the stage crew. I get to pull the curtain and turn on the lights and paint the scenery and all cool stuff like that. Mary Jane, another neighbor, came skipping down the street, jumping across the puddles on the sidewalk. "Here comes the dancing old doll!" yelled Henry. "Yes," Mary Jane smiled proudly. "I'll wear my new ballet slippers and my pink taffeta party dress and have my hair curled special." The other kids were disappointed. They couldn't tease Mary Jane if she wanted to be the dancing doll. It gave Henry an idea. He waited until Scooter said, "I'll bet the little boy'll look real cute in his pajamas. Are you going to wear the kind with feet in them, little boy?" "Aw, you're just jealous because you don't have an important part like I have. I've got the most important part in the whole play." "Ha! Don't be so funny," Scooter laughed. "I wouldn't learn all those lines and run around in front of a bunch of people in my pajamas for $1,000,000,000,000,000. It was a good idea, but it didn't work. Henry would have to think of something else. Maybe he could pretend to be sick. No, that wouldn't do it. His mom would make him go to bed, and if it did happen to snow, he'd then have to stay in the house while everybody was out there sledding on the 33rd Street hill. By the time Henry reached his house on Klickitat Street, he decided to say nothing about the play to his mom and dad until he could work things out. He said hello to his mother, who was writing a letter on the typewriter, and then he went into the kitchen to fix himself a snack of peanut butter, jam, and pickle relish on graham crackers. He spread a cracker with peanut butter and fed it to Ribsy. Then he leaned against the refrigerator to munch and think. Tap, tap, tap went the typewriter. Henry fixed himself another cracker. Tap, tap, tap. He heard his mom pull the sheet of paper out of the machine. Then he heard her go into the bedroom. The typewriter. That was it. Hey, Mom, can I use the typewriter?" "May I use the typewriter?" "May I use the typewriter?" asked Henry. "Yes, Henry, but don't pound too hard on the keys." Henry gulped down his graham cracker with peanut butter, jam, and pickle relish. He wiped his fingers on the seat of his pants and went into the living room. There he sat down at the desk, took a sheet of paper from the drawer, and fed it into the typewriter. He thought for a while and then began to type. He didn't make the typewriter go tap, tap, tap the way his mom did. He only made one tap at a time. And then, after a long pause, while he searched and looked for the right letter, he made another tap. He had to remind himself to push the extra key to make capital letters. Henry worked for a long time. Tap. 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 Luckily, his mom didn't pay any attention to his typing. Tap. 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 At last it was finished. Henry pulled out the paper of the typewriter. And this is where I'm going to stop. And we'll start again with his typewritten message. See y'all later.